Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to Coffee with Husker Big Red. This is episode 2, and we're going to be following up with this every Saturday. So, yeah, we are now less than 6 weeks away from the 2025 season kicking off. So, we're going to be leading up to that. We've got some recruiting information to follow up on this week, looking ahead to 2026 and 2027 classes. Baldwin Sone made his decision. So, we're going to discuss all that and whatever you guys want to talk about today. So, we'll let you lead the discussion. So if you are joining us from YouTube or Facebook, hop in on the chat. Let us know what you want to discuss today on Coffee with Husker Big Red, episode 2. And Danny, how are you doing on this Saturday morning, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Like you said, what 6 weeks until the opener? It's hard to believe. It really is. I'm just looking at the calendar, and I'm already starting to do the NFL training camp previews and the college football season previews. So, man, this summer has flown by.
Yeah, it has flown by, and we're now about 40 days away from kickoff. We're 42 days away on Thursday, so about 40 days away from August 28th against Cincinnati. So, another few more weeks to wait. James, here joining us from Facebook. Good morning, coffee. Let the games begin. James says, "Go Big Red." So, yeah, it's not going to be long before we're going to be. And this will be our tailgate show, so we'll be previewing every game, and we'll have to have a special Thursday edition on August 28th of Coffee with Husker Big Red when the Bearcats and the Huskers invade Arrowhead. Should be an interesting game, but I guess one of the main things I wanted to talk about, it's like there's the commitment of Baldwin Sone, going to Georgia on Friday, which didn't really surprise a lot of people. That's kind of what we thought would happen. But I did see a lot of discussion like, he picked the money and did all this. I saw a lot of that kind of discussion, and I just don't think that that's accurate. I don't think that Baldwin Sone picked Georgia because of the money. I've heard that Florida, threw more money out there, which
Yeah,
wouldn't surprise me at all. And it wouldn't surprise me if Nebraska had more money on the table. I think this was about the NFL pipeline development, all that type of stuff, the playoff, getting to early round draft picks, all that stuff that we're always talking about. Recruitments
national
don't,
exposure. Yeah,
yeah, recruitments don't always come down to money, and I think there were some factors weighing against Nebraska. The fact that they haven't even had a winning regular season since 2016. I mean, they went 7-6 last year, but 6-6 during the regular season. So I mean, moving forward, I think that it's really important that Nebraska has success in this 2025 season. I know there's a lot of reasons for that, but if you're looking at recruiting and why some of these recruitments maybe haven't gone Nebraska's way, I think it's more about the results on the field needing to back up what the program's building than lack of NIL money. Now sometimes that can be a factor, and with some of them it probably is, but I don't think Nebraska's that far behind in the realm of NIL where they can't compete for players. I mean, they outspent Ohio State for Danny Odom. We've talked about that. They paid Claude and Puma, and I feel like their offer was right there with Baldwin Sone. So I think a lot of this they need to. Matt Rule's selling a lot of this vision. Well, that a part of that vision needs to be paid off, on the field. And if they can start doing that this season, I think they're going to have a chance to pull off some flips. And I wouldn't rule out Baldwin Sone getting back on campus along with Jordan Campbell, Cameron Wilson, Tadarius Hughes. And so if they can win and show that this thing is headed in the right direction, I think we'll see the impact of that on the recruiting trail.
Well, I mean, look, you had two draft picks in this draft: Ty Robinson and Thomas Fidone. And Robinson was a fourth-round pick. Fidone was a seventh-round pick. In 2023, you had O'Shawn Mathis, who was drafted in the sixth round, and Trey Palmer, who was drafted in the sixth round. 2022 was one of the drafts where there were higher selected Nebraska draft picks, and that's one where I thought that maybe Nebraska, kind of not overachieved, but definitely made their mark. You had Cam Taylor Britt going in the second round, and you had Cam Jurgens going in the second round. Samori Toure had a selection in the seventh round by your Packers. And so beyond the 2022 draft, there haven't really been high draft picks as of late. I mean, we've had a lot of undrafted free agent signings, of course. Nebraska had quite a few this year. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in total this year. But by and large, there hasn't really been high NFL draft success. I mean, they had no picks in 2024, and the last first round Husker was Prince Amukamara. So, when you look at where do I want to go to start my pro career, where do I want to go to develop, Georgia's the logical choice right now.
Yeah, and Georgia, has been winning national championships and playing in the college football playoff. So there's, so they have a lot to sell. And yeah, I mean, how many guys have? I mean, hell, it seems like the Philadelphia Eagles have drafted like 7 first-round picks out of Georgia themselves. I mean, I know that's not accurate, but
No, it's pretty
they've
close.
drafted
That's pretty close.
Drafted quite a few of them. I mean, my Packers have drafted quite a few Georgia players in the first round recently. So they had one year they drafted 2. And then that was after it. So they've had like 3 or 4 first round picks that were Georgia Bulldogs. So I mean, I think that is a huge part of it. And I know Nebraska put in a lot of effort. They went to Sweden. Terry Braden did put a lot of effort into this one, but he also came on the job in January, February, late, mid-February after the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl. So I mean, he's only had 4 months, 3-4 months to try to pull off this recruitment. I mean, that does put you at a disadvantage. So I mean, I'm not I wouldn't put this loss on him or anything. I think he's doing a good job, and he'll be better. He'll be more set up for success in the 2027 class when he can build a lot of those relationships. And I've not been the only one who's saying this, but these relationships matter. I mean, I know it feels like a lot of these recruitments are just coming down to the paycheck, and I know it's easy to feel that way, but I still think, because I mean, more teams have money now. I mean, with a lot of recruitments, like, yeah, some are going to go like above $1 million or whatever, but I think for your like average 4-star, I think most of the teams in the mix probably have the same amount of money. I mean, there might be, maybe like Nebraska with Danny Odom was like, well, we really like this guy, so we're going to pony up extra. I mean, you might have situations like that, but that's still. I still feel like that's, just the school kind of really liking the player. So, I mean, money is going to be a factor in it, but the relationships still matter in recruiting too. And that's why, like Matt Rule is a really good closer. And like with some of these guys, especially Terry Braden with the D-line recruiting, I think having a full year on staff will set things up much better for him.
Well, also, this has been a multi-year problem, but the lack of development on the defensive line, defensive tackle, those types of guys. Ty Robinson was the only name that I mentioned out of that list that was a defensive tackle. So the lack of not only just getting drafted, but the lack of development on the defensive line in recent years that dates back to before even Matt Rule could definitely play a factor here as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it is interesting, and I know people will scoff at it, but I do think Nebraska's going to try to get him on campus for a visit with Valdensone. So, you never know.
I would say probably late fall or something like that, right before signing day. Because if I was them, I'd have him take as many visits as possible before then.
What game would be good to come back for is the Michigan game. Get him there for one of those big games, and if you win it, it'll give you a boost. If you lose, then you probably weren't going to get their recruitment anyway. But and winning, I don't know. Winning and losing doesn't matter that much for recruits when they're at the actual game. I think that.
No, I don't think so either.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it works out. I think they do have, some work to do with this class. It'd be nice to see them add, some more blue chip talent. But 2027, I think, is where they need to make more headway, and they've got off to a solid start there. They've got a number of big time visitors visiting. We mentioned David Brown the other day. They're in the mix with Mark. Is it Mark Matthews, the big offensive tackle, and Ahmad Houston? And there's a bunch of other guys who Torrey Pittman is one in the 2027 class. I mean, if you could start your class building around Trey Taylor and Torrey Pittman, and that would be a pretty good place to start for Nebraska.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now that you've got Trey in your class, I mean, I think Torrey Pittman needs to be. You need to put all your eggs in his basket and make sure LSU or somebody doesn't take him, and then you build out your class from there. Get a big offensive tackle again. That's it's always on the board. Nebraska's always in the mix with some of the top offensive tackles, and we'll see if they can get. They did get Claude Mpuma, which is really. It'd be nice to see him get like a top 100 guy though, or a 5-star offensive tackle. I'd love to see that happen.
For sure, but I think we're gonna need to see more results on the field for that to happen too. But That's why I think this third year is so big. I think if they have a really good year this year, then you're going to see recruiting absolutely explode.
And so James is mentioning there was a new hire this week.
Yep.
And I'm got to remember the name. I kind of forgot about this.
You're the Michigan guy. Come on now.
I know that's because he's not. I know Nebraska fans are making. He's not. It wasn't that big of a deal, honestly. But Anthony Johnson, the recruiting staffer from Michigan. So he worked there. He only spent 2 months at Michigan, so that's why I don't.
Yeah.
People. He was a defensive line coach that assisted the program with recruiting. I don't know that. I think it might be a little bit of a stretch to say that he's going to, assist in developing. But yeah, I mean, with recruiting, he definitely, I think, could make an impact, on the defensive line, with evaluations and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't know that this is necessarily like a big impact move for Nebraska. I think it's always a smart move to add more recruiting staffers, and I think Michigan does do a pretty good job with that. But he was with Pittsburgh before as well. So some of these guys kind of bounce around, these recruiting staffers. But it's nice to add up guys on your staff who have landed quite a few commitments. I mean, Michigan has had a really good class on the defensive line. So, but I think that probably has more to do with their D-line coach Lou Esposito than this guy who's been there for 2 months. But I still think it's a quality hire for Nebraska, though.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a quality hire for Nebraska, especially when you can have so many assistants these days. And Johnson, a little bit of Big Ten experience. So I think, by and large, it's a good hire. We'll have to see what he does. And in terms of actual results, within his job, but so certainly not a bad addition for Nebraska.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where they kind of how they structure it, but I'm sure he'll be doing something under Pat Stewart, with player evaluations and things like that. But yeah, it's not bad to have another guy with kind of a defensive line focus there. So I like how they're building their staff, and when you look at a reason to be confident about this team, I think going into 2025 is, basically 3 new coordinators. I know we had Holgerson for the end of last season, but he didn't get a full chance to really run his system and be he was kind of just picking up the pieces, and now it's really going to be his show. And you look at Holgerson, John Butler, what Mike Eckler is going to do, and those 3 guys have me as optimistic as any as the roster or anything else. I just think quality coaches and having quality coordinators, which Nebraska really didn't have for the first 2 years under Matt Rule, I think it's going to make a massive difference this season.
And I think when you look at the type of offensive personnel Nebraska has, it ties in very well with Holgerson's offense as well. I mean, you look at the wide receiver room and how that matches up offensively, and you could definitely see where they fit. Mills, Isaiah Hunter, guys like Dane Key, even though he's only here for 1 season, but those deep threat, big play guys will fit nicely in Holgerson's offense. So there was definitely a good match of personnel and scheme this offseason when the program, obviously recruited a guy like Mills and then signed a guy like Key.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Jeremiah Jones. I mean, this wide receiver group is pretty loaded, especially with young talent. Yeah, Jeremiah Jones, Demetrius Bell,
Corey Barney, obviously.
Yeah, Corey Barney, Cortez Mills, Isaiah Mosey, Quinn Clark. So you've got a lot of guys. I think that's 6 guys right there I just reeled off that are either freshmen or redshirt freshmen, essentially. I mean, Barney's a sophomore, but everybody outside of Barney is a freshman or a redshirt freshman, and yeah. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting. I mean, Quinn Clark. You look at him, I mean, he hasn't really produced much this year, but he's one of the freakiest athletes I've ever seen in my life, that personally I've ever seen. I mean, he's 6'5" and runs like a deer and high jumps like 6'8". Jeremiah Jones, very similar in that way. I mean, you can see the pictures of him. He just looks like an absolute freak. I mean, he looks like he could play linebacker, which he does on defense. I mean, that's pretty much what he does play on defense. You put on his tape at wide receiver, and it's like, holy crap, this guy is, it was a good thing Nebraska decided to let him play receiver. Let's see, we got a new question here from Nicholas. Thanks for joining the chat, Nicholas from YouTube. The 3 new coordinators are intriguing, in my opinion. Rule has quietly put together one of the better staffs in the country, at least on paper. Yeah, for sure. I think Mike Eckler is the one move I think that really, to me, shores it up because the special teams, cost him so much last season. But also, you know, Satterfield had to go. He couldn't call the plays anymore, and so now I feel like Nebraska's got a legit offensive coordinator, one of the best offensive coordinators in college football. Honestly, like Dana Holgerson's a pretty good head coach, and when he's been a coordinator, he's been really damn good. So I feel like it's hard to overstate how fortunate Nebraska was to get him last year. I think that was one of Matt Rule's most brilliant maneuvers, and I think 2 years from now, when Dylan Raiola hopefully is getting drafted in the first round, and we're coming off a playoff appearance, and Dana Holgerson's going to get a head coaching job somewhere else, people are going to really be praising this move from Matt Rule. So hopefully, projecting a little bit there, but hopefully that's the future for Nebraska.
And I'm really interested to see what John Butler does defensively in terms of bringing blitz packages and developing the cornerback position. I mean, the corner position was something he, kind of excelled at in the NFL. And in the Pinstripe Bowl, we saw, some certain blitzes and formations and things like that confused Boston College. So I'm excited to see him kind of build off that, because honestly, that was put together in probably two weeks or so once he was announced as the interim defensive coordinator, because Tony White never brought those blitz packages. So I'm excited to see what he does with the full season.
Yeah, I just think being inventive on third down, having some out pitches, having a few pitches that you can, get guys to swing on that third pitch. You know what I mean? That they're not going to quite see coming, because you have to confuse the quarterback. You have to get pressure on the quarterback, if you don't, you're screwed. And I think that there was way too many times, for whatever reason, where Tony Allen just did not have, he did not have the out pitch on third down. It would be third, they would come up with some really interesting stuff, and then be 3rd and 13. They would give it up. I mean, not all the time, but way too much. So I don't know. I'm not that move has never really hurt my feelings, and I just like guys that
able to bring pressure either consistently.
Yeah, and I just like coaches that come from the NFL. I think there's a different, especially on the defensive side of things. Just when you have to deal with quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and guys like that, Patrick Mahomes. I just think they have a different mindset coming on third down, and they know how important those few key plays are. And it made, I know I bring up this up, but it made all the difference in the world for Michigan. I mean, people want to talk about what changed between, they got rid of Don Brown and his dumbass blitz system, and they actually brought in an NFL style system where they could beat Ohio State. They built a defense that could beat Ohio State. That's really the main thing that Michigan changed. And it was because they had, an NFL style coordinator who could come up with stuff. Like Ohio State still got a crap ton of yards, but Michigan started getting stops in the red zone. They started getting pressure on the quarterback, and they started getting a few turnovers. And against elite teams, that's what you have to do. And Nebraska just hasn't been able to do that quite enough. Like Illinois, the Illinois game last year is a great, idea that they just could not stop Luke Altamar. They could not get pressure on him. They couldn't cover. And so you have to find ways to, against really good quarterbacks like that, if you tried out the same defense, and you're not winning up front, you're just going to get torched. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've got, Tommy Hill 100% healthy and you've got 6 of them. If you give that quarterback time, it does not matter. They'll light you up. And that's what happened. So hopefully, John Butler will make a big difference. I also feel like the pass rush is going to be better though, too. I mean, I know Ty Robinson was a good pass rusher on the inside, but, Princewell may have a great career at Ole Miss or wherever he went, but he was disappointing last year. And so was Cameron. Cameron Leonard and Princewell Umamalian did not take the second year leap, that we talk about. And I guess, I don't know, maybe that's, something that could be put at the feet of Terrence Knighton. You know what I mean? Those guys were each, Cameron Leonard was a freshman All-American and then basically didn't do anything last year. I mean, he really didn't make that's probably going a little too far with it, but, I don't remember him doing a whole lot last season. I expected him to really kind of take a leap, 4, 5, 6 sacks. So they need Keanu Davis and some of those guys to do that this year.
Yeah, I don't know if he didn't do anything last year, like you said, but I know you said that was a stretch, but I know he did very minimal. He did more, I think, in 2023 than he did in 2024. So, I'm very interested to see how the defensive line takes that lead, particularly Riley Van Poppel. I
Yeah.
know some fans were upset that Rule redshirted him last season, but I think it was the right move because now I fully expect him to have a major role and with another year under his belt.
Yeah. Yeah. Riley Van Poppel really is going to be, I think, a key player. If you look at the most important players on this team, I would say he's probably in my top 5, honestly, because you need an impact guy on the interior of the defensive line, and I think Elijah Judy is fine. I think he can be a decent run stuffer, but I think Ben Poppel is a guy that has a chance to be a playmaker, and he's shown that in his brief kind of like looking back at his freshman year. He had the forced fumble and a big play on 4th down against Illinois, had half a sack, and then last year in the Pinstripe Bowl, he had a big quarterback pressure, and so it would be. I still think Rule should have played him last year because then he'd be more ready to contribute this year. But it is what it is. But I do think that he's gonna take a big leap, and it wouldn't shock me if the production was honestly kind of similar to Ty Robinson in that way. And just like 4 or 5 sacks and really kind of an anchor on the interior of the defense. So I mean, you look at him, Willis McGahee the fourth, Dason McCullough, Keona Davis, Cam Leonard. Like there's pieces there. They need to get the most out of those guys.
I agree. And how they get the most out of those guys and how quickly they get the most out of those guys will be important because the first few games of the schedule are relatively easy, but then we get into the meat of it, like we talked about, the October, November type of slate, and now you want your guys to be ready to go because those 2 months are going to be important in particular.
Yeah, because after after the Cincinnati game, the next 2 games are obviously kind of gimmies. And then the first big one is Michigan. So yeah, and I think I've said it a million times that game is going to tell us a lot about how this season goes. Hopefully, I look at it a lot like not the Colorado game last year, and it's it's just so funny that we looked back and we're like, oh, the Colorado game is going to be the defining game, and it was the Illinois game. It wasn't the Colorado game. It was the Illinois game that was the defining one for this Nebraska team. And that's where this season just kind of last season went downhill. If they win that game, it's such a different season. Like they probably win 9 games if they beat Illinois. Like they probably don't stub their toe against UCLA. They probably beat Iowa. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know that it doesn't results maybe don't carry down that much, but I just feel like if you win that game and you just have confidence, like, man, we've beat a good team like this before. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I feel like the Michigan game this year is going to be like the Illinois game last year. It's really going to be kind of a defining moment for this team in a good or bad way.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that. Looking back on it now, I also think the UCLA game last season was defining in a different way that Tony White had maybe run out his welcome in Lincoln. So there were a couple games last season that really defined, the program and, the season. And Illinois was one, UCLA was one, and quite honestly, Northern Iowa, even though Nebraska won the game pretty handily, that was when I felt the cracks first started to show, especially again with the running quarterback.
Yeah, and then we saw that a little bit against Illinois because Ultrameyer does run a little bit. So yeah, so here's another from Nick, another comment here. So I feel like the defense is more talented overall than last year. Hopefully they can gel and put it all together. I would agree with that.
This is a good point because by the end of last season, Isaac Gifford was struggling.
Yeah.
By the end of last season,
he struggled all last season. I mean, he played well in 2023, but he was lost last year.
I thought so too, and I'm glad you said that because I thought maybe I was being too harsh, but I thought he was lost as well. And then another guy who kind of, I don't know, John Bullock had really good stretches, and then he kind of faded in the back half of the season. So there were a bunch of guys, but it's interesting that you brought up Gifford because I thought he was going to be like one of the better players in the entire Big Ten based off of what he did in 2023, and instead he regressed a ton.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I agree with this statement overall. I think safety is better. I mean, essentially a lot of the same guys, but you get Singleton, and so I think that's getting him
Devin
back was
Wright.
huge. Yeah, and then the linebacker position, Javin Wright, you know, oh shoot, the guy from that transferred to Marcus Watson Trent, Vincent Shavers. So and then you got Christian Jones and Dawson Merritt. Like it's almost gonna be hard for those guys to get on the field. I think they will, but then you look at Jack and you've got McGahee and you've got McCullough. So it's gonna be that linebacking group is definitely, I think, better than it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Because you've got two young studs that are coming up, and you've got two veterans in Watson, Trent, and Wright. And then you've got just the jack of all trades and Dason McCullough, who, in my opinion, I'm honestly looking ahead, I think he's going to be Nebraska's like first player drafted in the 2026 NFL draft. I don't know. I think he's got a good shot. I want to say he's going to get like 5.5 or 6 sacks this year, and I think he could be like a third round pick. Like I think he's kind of been done a disservice by teams, and they're like moving him around and stuff. And so, I mean, that is part
Yeah.
of what makes him a good player. But like, I think his best attribute is rushing the passer, and I think Nebraska is going to let him do that. So I feel like he's going to have kind of a breakout season on defense, and I really like Keanu Davis. I really feel like he's going to have a breakout season too. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk that like there's worry on the defensive line, and I'm a little worried about the interior guys, but I feel like there's going to be enough. I don't know, enough. I don't want to say weight, but you know what I mean. But like enough. I think there's going to be enough size and strength
Yeah.
inside from Judy and I forget that other guy, John Perella or whatever his name is. I totally forget his name, but
Yeah. I think you're right. He's kind of an under the radar guy.
but I think he's he looking back when I was looking back on him, like he played more in the Pinstripe Bowl than I thought. So I think Nebraska's better off at defensive line than we all hope. They don't have like a Nash Hutmaker for the nose tackle position, but I think it'll be okay. I think the way that they kind of move their guys around, I think they'll be okay up front. I think Elijah Judy is like big enough and tough enough that I think he can sit there and eat up blocks inside. So
I was going to say
hopefully,
Nash was a little bit disappointing last year once he lost the weight for wrestling. So I don't know how big of a loss that's going to be as it relates to last season. 2023, I thought he was a lot better.
yeah, he was a lot better last in 2023, and yeah, he just didn't have the same. I mean, I don't know. He was dominant. Like you look at the Colorado game, like they were dominant in that game, but it just didn't. And I don't know if the snap counts eventually wore down on him, but yeah. So Dylan Parrott was the name I was mentioning before. So sorry I messed that name up, but 6'5", 315 pounds. And Elijah Judy's 6'3", 285. I know they've got Riley Van Poppel listed at 290, but he's not 290. He's like 315. So they've definitely got a few guys in the mix there. That Mason Goldman's another I kind of forget about. And then Ashton Murphy, he's another solid player. And then Cade, you look at guys who could contribute this season though too. It's probably that we're not talking about enough. Cade Patrizak and Malcolm Simpson. I think they both have a chance. And then Williams Noweri is kind of the X factor. And then also Jalen George. He does not get talked about enough. So
Gabe Moore, yeah.
Yeah, Gabe Moore. What's the situation with the D-line player from Germany? So I'm assuming you're talking about David Hofkin. So yeah, he's still on the defensive line. That's where for a while they talked about playing him at tackle or like offensive tackle. And which to me though, I watched him play. I watched him his highlights, and he always looked like a defensive end to me. He's 6'7", 255 pounds. He redshirted last year, so I wouldn't probably expect him to contribute this year, but maybe next season, will be a chance for him because he was super raw. But I think a little more seasoning. So maybe we'll start to hear his name a little bit this year. But I mean, it's a pretty loaded depth chart. So, but yeah, he's still on the roster, and I think they're still really excited about him. He's got a lot of raw physical tools. Speaking of David Hofkin, there. And Co, good to see you again, Co. I thought Nash was great. Still, he just fills space. Hard for the nose tackle to do much in the 3-3-5, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, he did. I just think if you look at the run defense wasn't nearly as good as it was in 2020. I mean, in 2023, they had a dominating run defense. And I mean, Nash
They
was
did.
pretty good. I do think part of it, too, is kind of like Co alluded to. I mean, he is have to take on blocks and just filling up space. And when you're a space eater like that, I mean, playing 40, 50 snaps a game is tough. And sometimes those guys, like you look at the Vince Wilfork types, for the Patriots or Patriots back in the day, like he'd play like 30 snaps a game, and so when you're asking a guy to do that 50, 60 snaps, and then, not only being like the space eater on rundowns, but also rushing the passer and kind of being that bull rusher. I mean, I don't know if all that and wrestling and having less weight, if that all, kind of was a contributing factor. I just don't think he was quite as good. He was still good. He just wasn't he wasn't the 2023 Nash, because 2023 Nash, I think he would have got drafted, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. And the USC game last season sticks out to me, especially when they had trouble defending the run in that game. But I feel like at some point he just got tired, not because of one game, but because of his, so many snaps over his entire career and so many snaps just during last season. Like I remember thinking, and I think I said this to you, like he looked tired in the Northern Iowa game, and we're like, oh man, we still have so much season to go. So I think all those snaps did catch up to him.
And just looking at Jalen George, who's still, I mean, they have him listed as a junior. In 2023, he had 9.5 tackles for loss and 3 sacks for East Tennessee State. Last year, he had 6 tackles for loss, or let's see. No, I'm messing that up. He had 3.5 tackles for loss and 2.5 sacks, but he only played 7 games. So, I mean, he's definitely a guy that I think is going to be able to contribute. And he's 6'2", 260 pounds, and a guy who can be, kind of a pass rusher, defensive line type. So, yeah, Gabe Moore is another one we haven't really mentioned at all. And Williams Nwaneri really is an X factor. Like, I definitely think he's going to play this year. I just, is he going to be like a starting player? Is he going to be like a rotational player? I think there's a lot of questions there, but there's a lot of talent in that defensive line room with Nwaneri, Simpson, all the guys that we mentioned.
Yeah, and I almost view Nwaneri as kind of like an end. I don't know if that's accurate, but I see him kind of more as an end type of player, like a defensive end, pass rushing type player.
Yeah, he's like he's an edge. I would call him an edge /5 technique.
Yeah.
In the sense that I think he can, like, if you're looking at a base defense, like a base 3-4 defense, I think 5 technique is as natural down in that, like, in the 3-4 front. And then, yeah, I think he's a defensive, edge pass rusher, but he's also a guy that I think could, I mean, he's 6'7", so I think he is a guy that could also potentially be, one of those bigger guys that you bump inside, and have as a defensive end rushing from the interior. I mean, that could give you a pretty good group of guys. Like if you're talking about, maybe Keanu Davis on the outside, McCullough on the outside, maybe McGahee, and then you got Williams Nwaneri on the middle with, Riley Van Poppel. Not all the time, but,
and
that.
Keanu Davis.
Yeah. And Keanu Davis. Yeah, and kind of rotating those guys around. But, yeah, 6'7", 255 pounds. Did have 1 sack last season, only played in 4 games. So we'll see. I mean, if they can get the most out of Williams Nwaneri, though, that'll be a home run for Nebraska football. So hopefully,
absolutely.
Terry Braden's got some big charges there, and Malcolm Simpson's another one. He definitely looks like a guy who can contribute right away for this Nebraska football team.
And also the rehab of Tyson Terry is going to be important to watch as well. I don't think he's going to play this season, but just his overall, like how he progresses and how that could, lead into a big 2026.
Yeah, because he's a guy, I think, 6'3", 305 pounds. That's what he's on, on the roster right now. I mean, easily, I could see him being 6'3", 325, and just being an absolute beast inside. So the only undefeated heavyweight wrestler in the history of Nebraska. So I mean, it's to win a state championship as a freshman, as a heavyweight, that's tough, and that tells you a lot about Tyson Terry. So I've always thought he was better than his ranking too. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, in my mind, he's a 4-star caliber player. But yeah, and Cade Patrizak, that's another one where he beat out Oklahoma for him. Like that's one I think when we look back at the 2025 class, like he's going to be one of the reasons they're like, damn, that was a good class because Cade Patrizak, Malcolm Simpson, Jeremiah Jones, these are all guys I think that are going to be playing in the NFL someday. And Nebraska was able to win those recruitments, but Cade Patrizak especially, it would not surprise me if he made an impact near the end of the season because he's a really talented pass rusher. Usually does take those guys a little bit of time. So but he would be one that like I at least think there's a good chance that Simpson and Patrizak burn their red shirt this year.
I agree, and I'm really excited for Simpson, Texas kid, very explosive. It doesn't look like he like plays a defensive end position. It looks like he can play the linebacker spot. So I'm very curious to see what he can do.
Yeah, they've got him listed at 6'3", 265, and there's no way. He looks like when you look at his pictures, he's like 290. There's
Yeah,
no way that guy's not at least 290. I
I
mean,
agree.
so okay, let's see, Coach. Do you think that Odom will stay committed? I saw last night that Wisconsin lost a safety to a Texas school. We need to find a new word other than commit. LOL. Yeah, I'm not that worried about. I wouldn't be worried about Wisconsin with Danny Odom. I think the school to worry about is Ohio State, which Greg Smith mentioned earlier this week. The Buckeyes were probably number 2 in the original recruitment. So yeah, Ohio State lost. They did have a defensive back flip to North Carolina, and so that kind of triggered some articles like who could Ohio State possibly flip, and Danny Odom's name was mentioned there. So I do think teams are going to try to come for him. He's 143rd overall in the composite rankings from 24/7 Sports. He's the number 8 cornerback in the class via 24/7. So 6'2", 180 pounds. I mean, show me a better man-to-man cover corner in this class. I think you could probably count the better corners than Danny Odom with one hand because there's not many. I mean, he's about as good as it gets in terms of just man-to-man coverage. Maybe not quite the athlete that CJ Brona is, but pretty damn good. So I think they will ultimately. I think they will keep Danny Odom, but I think it's going to take, it's going to take till signing day, and this is one that we're probably not going to feel good about until we get the graphic popped up from Nebraska football Twitter that he signed with the program because that's how good he is. So my answer is yes, but there's going to be some stress that goes along with it.
It's going to be a lot of work that goes into it as well, and was just recently invited to the Navy All-American Bowl for next January. So
yes, I love Danny Odom. That's Danny Odom and Puma. I really love Scott. And the other wide receiver, Larry Miles. Love those guys. I also really like Hayden Ainsworth and Rex Waterman, even though Rex Waterman his ranking just keeps falling. He's like in the 1700s now, but who cares? Like that's just one thing that I found is really interesting. Is I think you see teams that are starting to, I think, view some of these high school kids like the developmental prospect as potentially guys that can save you some money down the road. Like I was looking at Bill Belichick's class at North Carolina. They've got 33 commitments already, and 11 of them are ranked outside the top 1,000. And they've got 8 blue chips, but they've got 11 commitments outside the top 1,000. It's like, I'm sitting here thinking, why would Bill Belichick do that? Why would he take so many players ranked so lowly? And it's because he thinks he's the best. I mean, he is one of the best coaches of all time. So he's thinking, I can make the average 3-star player better than most of these coaches can. You know what I mean? And so if you can build like reasonable, and so say you've got 11 players outside the top 1,000. Okay, so what if you get even 3 or 4 of those guys to play like a 4-star player, like a starting caliber player? You just saved yourself a heck of a lot of money, maybe in the transfer portal, or you know what I mean? Like you could, instead of having to go get like a cornerback or a linebacker, maybe you can go, like instead of having to get 2 or 3 veteran backups or like, spot starters, maybe you can use all your money on going and getting like a big time wide receiver. So.
And that's a good point by James, because Butler has a track record of helping and getting players to the NFL, so that could help come signing day.
Yeah, I think Nebraska's got, Addison Williams too. I mean, has a lot of experience. So yeah, on the coaching part of it, I think Nebraska does have a lot to sell in terms of, defensive back recruits. And John Butler did a lot of, you look at Micah Hyde, some of the other
Mhm.
guys in Buffalo that really succeeded under him. I
Jordan
mean,
Poyer.
yeah, so he definitely has a lot of credentials there. You look at Ohio State though; I mean, how many guys do they get drafted every single year? Like they're in the top five. Like you talk about Georgia, they're right there with Georgia. I mean, I think the last 5 years, I think it's been Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, and I don't know who else would be after that. Maybe Florida State, somebody like that. But I know those, maybe LSU, but I know that those four programs who have all won national championships recently, they have all, drafted a ton of players. So just with that in mind and them being the champs and, like it seems like Ohio State can sleepwalk through a season and still finish 10 and like even if they had like I could coach their team to 9 wins. You know what I mean? And I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you like I mean I'm not taking a shot at Ryan Day. They just have more talent than like, a monkey that knows nothing about football should be able to coach Ohio State to a 10-2 season. Like and not even like that's like the recruiting too. Like their recruiting is such a factory. I mean, like it really is unbelievable. They can turn their nose up at players and not even offer players that like Nebraska, can't even get. So I mean, hopefully that starts changing over the next few years. But but that's you look at Ohio. If you look at Big Ten recruiting, there's Oregon, Ohio State, then there's everybody else, and Nebraska is like trying to get up to that top notch of everybody else with Michigan and Penn State and USC, but like consistently. And I know USC is number one this year, but I'm saying consistently over the last like 5 years. Like if there's a big time prospect, Ohio State and Oregon are there. So like Nebraska needs to start trying to get in more of those conversations. But I don't see that as being the path though. Like, I mean, Michigan had, I think, one class in 5 years that was in the top 10. It's about development. And I really think that that's where Matt Rule can replicate what Jim Harbaugh did there. So the thought of playing for Ohio State is tough to turn down for sure. For sure. Cause I mean,
Yeah.
like every position, I mean, they have defensive backs, they have receivers, they have edge, D line. I mean, every position they've gotten guys drafted. I mean, just off the top of my head, in the past few years, I think they've probably had a guy at every spot. Um, so yeah, that's going to be a tough one to turn down. And we talk about money. Nebraska paid the money there, so hopefully they'll be able to do that again. And the one thing I guess I would say about like Baldwin Sone, what's a bummer about missing on a guy like him is, or I guess a positive is that does leave whatever money Nebraska was going to try to commit there. That opens that money up. So maybe they can give more to Danny Odom, or maybe they can, give that give some of that to Darius Hughes and try to get him flipped. So even though you miss on recruits, it is kind of like free agency. Like, okay, well, we can take our money and prioritize it and put it somewhere else.
Right. And,
So,
you kind of saw that with Claude and Puma a little bit, I think.
mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And he, they tried to get that Kelvin Obot and just didn't really work out. And so, yeah, they shifted their money over to Mpuma and another guy that had a lot of big time offers, SEC Big 12 offers or Big 10 offers, excuse me. And so that's so it'll be interesting to see how they work with that money. But I'd really like to see him get either Jordan Campbell or Cameron Wilson, and I think Hughes would be great, and some type of defensive lineman, whether it's Baldwin Sone. It doesn't sound like that other defensive tackle, that 340 pounder, sounds like he's going to North Carolina probably. So, so I would expect Baldwin Sone to visit, but I would also expect some new names to pop up on the defensive tackle board, and maybe some flip candidates, at this point in the cycle.
No, I agree. And, when you when you talk about Campbell, I mean, he is already planning visits for the fall. So I believe he canceled his visit in June and stayed committed to Miami initially, but it doesn't sound like that recruitment is done yet.
Yeah, he did. He did something where he said like he was firmed up with Miami, like how guys do that.
Mm-hmm.
and then he kind of backed off that. So he's going to be taking visits not only to Nebraska. There's a few places that he's going to be visiting. So, and he's ranked really high. I didn't realize how highly he was ranked. Not that
Yeah.
rankings, that's not the only determining factor of if it's a good player or not. But so I'm just trying to I'm pulling up here. So co-ed, interesting question. What's the outlook for kids that they've recruited on the D line? Any commits to lower level schools that they could circle back on. So I'm just kind of checking through some of their D line offers here. I don't really see a ton. I don't see a ton of guys in here that jump off the page. As guys to try to flip. Maybe like a Hudson Parliament. If you remember that name, he committed to Iowa, out of South Dakota. But Iowa gets a lot of those South Dakota type of kids. So yeah, so not a ton of names out there. There's one kid that they offered. His name is Joseph Terry, but he's kind of way outside.
The
He's
Michigan
like,
State safety?
No, he's a defensive lineman. It was a 3-star that they offered, but really
I'm thinking of Khalil Terry. That's what
yeah, Khalil Terry. So yeah, in terms of that question, there's nobody that sticks out to me, but keep your eye out because I think there'll probably be some more offers come out, or it might be one where they kind of wait to evaluate the fall film and try to get like a rising senior who's kind of more of a diamond in the rough type. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and I think when you look at this kind of defensive line class, a lot will be determined by how they progress this season. And development at the position is going to be important, not only for right now, but for Terry Braden in the future. Because if he can show that he can develop this group right off the bat in his first year, then that will set the tone for recruiting moving forward.
And the Chiefs have had a lot of success with guys. I mean, there was one guy, Chris Jones, but there's a guy, Mike Danas. He went there from Michigan as a 7th-round pick, just because I followed his career with a Michigan guy. But he was a 7th-round pick, and they've turned him into like a 5-sack guy, like year after year. I think he's had like 20 sacks or something. So I mean, they've taken a lot of guys that have been not highly drafted or highly rated and turned them into pretty good players, pretty productive players. So I'm optimistic. Like I said, I like guys coming from the NFL, and I think they did a good job here. They went for some big fish this cycle, and it didn't work with Trey on board for 27. They might have a better shot with some of those kids, but man, they really struck out this year. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's inaccurate to say. I don't think that's unfair to say. They did strike out, with a lot of kids on their board. But I mean, I think it was always going to be a bit of a smaller class. So I feel like part of their mindset was like, okay, we've got 15 spots. Let's try to get as many top tier players as we can. And I'm not sure why they struck out as much as they did, to be honest with you, because they got Danny Odom, they got Claude Mpuma. Like there's just guys like Brian Bonner and, some of these defensive line types, but I don't know. I'm not that discouraged by it. Now, if you have 2 classes like this in a row, then I think that's something to be worried about.
Yep.
But that's like the whole title of this episode is that this season is going to be, I think, really critical. And if they win and they win 8 or 9 games, then I think the arrow is really pointing up, and everything that Matt Rule's been selling recruits and been saying is true. But if they have 6 or 7 wins, then I think this whole thing gets into that mire, and you're in the muck, and you don't know what the hell is going to happen. And Matt Rule's on the hot seat going into next season. And so hopefully, I just think that's critical that they win 8 or 9 games this year.
I agree. And, I think they can. I think they have the schedule to do it. I just worry about that back half. It's the same kind of situation we were in last year. But I have confidence in Holgerson, and things have improved on the coaching staff from last year, but I really do still worry about that back half. There's going to be a lot of tough games, including the one in Happy Valley.
Yeah, and the one at Maryland, the one at Minnesota. I mean, there's a lot of tough games
on short rest.
Yeah, on short rest. Yeah, and going to like Maryland's a better program. I know they had a kind of a down year last year, but they're a pretty good program, and they've recruited pretty well. Because that DMV, man, you look at like natural pipelines, like Maryland's set up really well. If they could ever, if they could ever do like the, USC and keep kids in Maryland, they'd have a loaded program. But of course, it's difficult. But they're doing a better job of it. So don't look at that Maryland game as an easy win, like at all.
I mean, remember 2 years ago?
Yeah, and they ruined our bowl. Yes, I do. I do remember that. Yep, when we were at the 2 freaking yard line, and we're like, oh, we're just going to throw the ball instead of just kicking a field goal and letting the defense, which had dominated all game. I mean, played their asses off all game. They'd given up 10 points, and we decided to throw an RPO at the 3 yard line with 2 minutes left. That gets
Malachi
picked off.
Coleman didn't jump for the ball or something.
Yeah, I can't even remember what. I just know that Chuba threw it, and I think it was an RPO. And for some reason, it's like, dude, just hand the freaking ball off. And it just, I don't know. And then Maryland goes down and gets a field goal.
I'm not gonna say that's a defining moment for Malachi Coleman, but that to me was like, damn, like this might not work out at Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really look at it as that one play, but
no, but I kind of it was kind of a microcosm of his overall Nebraska career.
Yeah, and that was that. Yes, and that, like, I don't know, like the people that are like, oh, I do have concerns about Matt Rule. Like that game is like one where I'm like, yeah, that was. But coaches make mistakes all the time. Like, it's not just because, like, and he didn't even call the play. I mean, I'm sure he knew what the play was, but he didn't even call the play. But like, I mean,
and as I recall, their run defense was stuffing us all game.
I know, but like at that point, who cares? Like all we needed to do was get the lead, and I feel like if they got the lead, Maryland wasn't going to go down and get a field goal. Maybe they would have. I don't know, but to me, it's just like when you know you have the worst quarterback situation in college football and major college football, don't put the game in the quarterback's hands. That's the last person. and then it was so funny. The next week, I remember against Wisconsin, then we were down by 3 points, and we got in the red zone, and then didn't try to go for the touchdown because he wanted to give the defense a chance. And so those 2 games, that made me worry about Matt Rule, because I'm like, okay, well, this week you're now coaching based on the fan reaction to last week, because fans were pissed that you tried to, you ran the ball when you shouldn't have. And then this week you were more conservative as a reaction to the fan comments. So that, like, Matt Rule cannot listen to the noise. He's got to stop doing that. Like, he does that a little too much. He has to, I feel like he's worried too much about the PR aspect of it and the media aspect of it, like trying to sell, like, he's got to worry about that stuff less, stop talking less, and just like, I would like to see Matt Rule stop doing interviews, like stop doing national interviews, stop doing interviews with Andy Staples and all these people that call you. Just stop talking. Just go let your results on the field do the talking for you. I want him to be like Jim Harbaugh. Just be the most unfriendly person to the media ever. Stop doing podcasts with Husker Online. I know it's great for us, but just stop. I mean, it's just like, what does that gain for you? I just don't like, and him up there being like, oh, we're going to compete with Ohio State and all, like, just stop making all these statements and just start, let your play on the field do the talking for you. Like, that's what I would really like to see out of Matt Rule these next few years. Stop worrying about the media. Stop giving a crap what the fans have to say. Like, the fan opinion should never enter your mind as a head coach ever. And he has had that happen before. So I think he needs to, button down the hatchet and stop being like, I know what he's trying to do, but just like coach the team and give the media the finger. Like, they don't need access. Just get them the hell out of there and do your job.
Right. And I agree. And, I think, that's just who Matt Rule is. I remember him doing it a lot at Baylor. I mean, he's always been pretty friendly with the media, and I think that's just a part of, who he is, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, for sure. But that's my wish. So at any rate, gonna have to wrap her up here. You guys went for about an hour today, so had a fun chat. But that's my rant piece, and I know why he does it. He's a great ambassador for the program. But like, we don't need to do so many interviews. You know what I'm saying? Like, just tone it down a bit. Just tone it down a bit, and then you can do some more interviews after we go 10-2 and make the playoff. Then you can do all the interviews you want.
Maybe that'll be this year. Who knows?
I hope so. Beat Michigan, and I feel good about this. I don't want to say it, but beat Michigan. I think this team could make the playoff. So I did say it.
Oof. Beat again that Maryland Minnesota stretch. Do you take care of that stretch? Then I'll fully believe.
Yeah, but I think if you beat a team like Michigan, I just think that will do so much for this team's belief. You know, like, oh man, like this team on the national. I mean, I know it's a different team, but still Michigan, and they're still going to be probably ranked if they beat Oklahoma. I don't know if they will, but still, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those teams in the Big Ten that you know you're going to have to beat if you're ever going to win anything. You know, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and wins Nebraska beat somebody like that? They haven't under Matt Rule, and so like, I feel like if you get a win like that. Then you go into that Maryland game, it's like, man, we've done this before. Like, you know, oh, we got down 10 points. We can still do this. And so I feel like Nebraska has been missing that mindset. And once you get that, man, like it changes everything. Like it really does. Like I remember when Michigan was struggling through that, they went on the road, they beat Penn State on the road. And then after that, the mindset that team had, like it just completely flipped. And after that game was like, I knew they were going to beat Ohio State because they'd been through the crap and they found a way. And so that's what this team needs to do. And I think if they can find a way in that Michigan game, like the confidence that they will get in themselves will be it'll be so valuable. And it will translate to a lot more wins.
For me, those two games are trap games. Like I could see us going undefeated, including the Michigan game, but I worry about those two as like the ones where we kind of let our guard down and have trap games because there seems to be always one or two,
Yeah.
and you know that to me like the Michigan game is extremely important. I'm just worried about those two because I could see us sliding and getting too confident after a good start to the season, and it's partly what happened last year. That wasn't the entire reason why, but it's partly what happened last year.
Yeah, UCLA worries me because it's a long trip and they beat us last year and they've got a good quarterback. So, but all right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us today on Coffee with Husker Big Red, episode 2. We'll be back next week for episode 3. We'll have a bunch of other videos coming this week. So if you're watching on the replay or watching live, if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll have Husker content almost daily at the YouTube channel. So make sure you don't miss any of it. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.